Hello everyone and welcome to this first KSP2 Redux developer Q&A. I'm your host Safat, aka Brice. I'm one of the project leads for KSP2 Redux, and tonight I'll be joined by a few other developers from the team. How's the development of Stage 0 going? Munix.
We are getting very close to the first release of Foundation. We have basically all of the features apart from Drestoids and ISRU completed. ISRU is also reaching a pretty finalized state, I would say, and we have one of the two Drestoids done. So hopefully should be within the next few weeks that you will be able to play with all of those things, and we can technically consider the Foundation stage officially released.
Does CKAN support Redux? If people don't know, CKAN is a mod manager for KSP1 and KSP2. And do existing KSP2 mods work with Redux?
So the answer is not yet. We are planning to have CKAN support once Redux is in a stable state, once we have a stable release and are out of the beta testing. And as for the existing mods, we are making some extensive changes to the modding API and the mod loader. So currently all KSP2 mods will not work with Redux. They need to be specifically updated for the current version of Redux, which is something we will help modders with once we reach the stable release.
What will be the difference between exploration and frontier modes, as both require resources? Exploration mode will be more focused on exploring the Kerbals and neighboring systems. In this mode, the resources that would be used to build advanced engines and add complex parts will be unlocked by, for example, establishing a colony that extracts and refines this resource. Once the resource has been unlocked and the colony in question has been linked to a supply network with all other colonies, you can build any part on a vessel that use this resource on any colony of the network. In frontier mode, on the other side, resources will have quantities and rates and extraction rates, and you will have to manage all the logistics of sending those resources at given rates based on how fast you can do your resupply missions and how you did establish your resupply routes. You can kind of think of exploration and frontier mode as KSP1's science and career mode. How many people are currently working on the project? I'd say there are around 20 active developers and artists currently. This number fluctuates a lot depending on the availability of everyone, but that's the rough current number. If KSP2 Redux really brings KSP2 back to life, would you consider reaching out to the company that bought KSP2 for a collaboration?
We would definitely like to work with them in some sort of capacity, be it as an official developing studio or even something unofficial in the way that they could possibly give us the source code for the game and we would keep developing Redux in the way we do, something similar like that. One example that we have that is a possible model of collaboration is something like Portal 2 Community Edition, which basically has its own Steam page, but it requires you to own Portal 2 in order to install the separate game. So, but this all depends heavily on what the company will be open to and whether they have any future plans for the game or not.
Thank you, Tao, for the question. When will we see the features from the KSP2 roadmap?
So the answer is whenever we finish them. We don't really have any sort of deadlines or estimates because this is something that I should say that I enforced upon the team once last year when I basically promised that we would release Redux in summer of 2025, and well, as you could all see, that didn't happen because everyone got so burnt out that the project almost died for a couple of months. So the answer is no estimates or deadlines.
Yeah, great answer. We don't want to overpromise or promise anything we can't follow up on. Are colonies, interstellar, and multiplayer really planned by Amadeo Schneider? Yeah, we've already slowly started working on the game design and some art for the colonies in the background while preparing for the first stable release of Foundation. And we already have done some basic work and planning for multiplayer, and we have lots and lots of plans for interstellars, like concepts for celestial bodies, and we have a lot of information from the original developers on engines that can be found in their communication and stuff like that. How do you plan to add interstellar travel, colonies, habitats on other planets, etc.? Do you plan on creating new mechanics such as Orion Drive engines? And will we be shown free IVA in the near future?
This is a loaded question. There's a lot in it, but for the first part, I would say that we could spend days and weeks talking about how colonies and interstellar travel are sort of being planned and how they will be made. But I can just say that it will be with a lot of sweat, blood, and tears. So we have a nice few years in front of us working on those features. When it comes to Orion Drive style engines, yes, those are planned to be added with colonies, just like the original developers were planning. We have already seen some showcases of this engine from them, so we will be following in a similar fashion. And IVA and free IVA are things that we are internally discussing. We don't currently have any sort of announcement for it, but it's something we would like to do eventually.
How will the distinction between a large craft and an orbital colony be made by Lava 778?
Colonies will specifically require a colony founder part, which is like the, let's say, the HQ of the colony. This is a part that you will put on a rocket, fly it somewhere in space, or land it on a different planet. And then when you deploy it, it will turn the vessel that carries it into a colony, both in orbit and on the surface. And then the same part will be basically used as the center of colony management. It will be used to enter the colony building mode, where you will be able to modify and expand your colony based on the resources you have. And for orbital colonies, it will also be possible to use this part to pack the colony, which will turn it back into a normal vessel, meaning you will be able to start the engines and move it to a different place. And then you can unpack it again, which will again turn it into a colony where its orbit can't be affected and where you will be able to use all of the colony science, build vessels, and all the colony things.
Will the gravity ring components be added to the game in the future by SJLH? Yes, we plan on adding gravity rings for orbital colony mainly and for large interstellar vessels. That's planned. Don't know if we will add special gameplay features around it, but the parts are planned. How would orbital colonies construct vessel? Is it something like the space VAB in the debug menu? And will we be able to toggle autosave before launch? At your orbital colony, when you have like a specialized part, a kind of shipyard part, you'll be able to enter the VAB-like interface from it, build your vessel there, and either directly attach and save it as docked to the orbital colony, or you can launch it with the special orbital launch clamps, which were showcased by the original devs in the past. I think I have a pictures. Yeah, here is a screenshot from the original dev communications of these orbital launch clamps, which will be attached to your colony to create a sort of orbital shipyard where you can launch vessels from. Vessels which would have been built using the VAB-like interface. Will airbrakes ever get features to act as flaps like in KSP1 or like the grid fins in KSP2 by Karate Buster 2000? Unix?
I saw the question and decided to immediately implement it, so this feature will be coming in beta 7.
will Starship-style flaps be considered to be added in the near future by supplies?
That's that's another question, second in a row, where the answer is I saw it, I liked it, and so it's already implemented for beta 7.
And you'll be able to have fun with all of these new parts in the next beta, which will release when it's ready. Are your refrigerators running? By the Creative 8. Munich, are your refrigerators running?
No, sadly, I checked and they are still standing in the kitchen, so
Too bad.
maybe next time.
Wait. Mine are running though. Oh, crud.
You should go catch it. By Walter. First, I would like to say thank you for making Redux. It's incredible that you all are wanting to continue the work of the devs and make this game flourish how we all imagined it would back in 2020, and it means the world to us in the community. Now, my question is with colonies. With how the initial trailer, it seemed like a fairly large colony, almost like a city. Is that something that we can expect, or would it have to be constrained to a smaller scale to work with the game engine? What type of buildings can we expect to have, and what can we expect with modability? Would the ability to explore inside of them like free IVA in KSP1 be possible? Best regards to the team, and I wish the smoothest sailing for development. You guys have reignited my love for the Kerbals system. First of all, thank you for the really, really nice message. It means a lot to us, and it really made our day when we received the question. Regarding the colonies and the large cities, that's what we hope to support, and it's one of the main reasons why we're working on converting all of the core game simulation system to DOTS. So Unity's data-oriented stack, which includes ECS, burst, and jobs. And this should allow us to have much better performance when we scale up to a very large number of parts and very large colony builds. Especially when you have a lot and a lot of background vessels and background colonies doing a lot of stuff. As for specific building or habitat types, we don't really have anything to share right now. We haven't really fully started the modeling work for all colony parts. But you can always check out the archive of all of the original devs' communication, which can be found on the KSP forums. Here is the link to the colony archive. Regarding modability, modding colonies should be as easy and the same thing as modding rocket parts. Hopefully, that's the plan. And regarding free IVA, it's something that we are internally discussing and might add eventually, but it will increase the amount of work and the amount of time required for every part, every building by a lot. So that's a compromise that we have to discuss. How do you plan on implementing colonies into the game? Was there some development done before Redux started that you can utilize to help, or is this something that must be done from scratch by Walkable Director Munich?
The answer is that there is close to no code for colonies in the game. There are hints of it, but essentially we will be starting from scratch. But we have talked at length internally about how to handle the technical standpoint of orbital and surface colonies. We have a pretty good general idea of how we want the gameplay to work, but the full game design will need to be finalized. We will get to that point after we release Foundation. That's when the brunt of colony work will be done.
By Bo, will there be a max size a surface or orbital colony can be? So could we build massive colonies, or will there be a limit on how big one colony can be? Similarly to vessels, the limits will be as big as your imagination. There might be some gameplay limits depending on the tier of the colony, but that's still in discussion. But the goal is to enable player to build whatever they can imagine and not limit creativity. How much optimization will be possible? Frame rates are not great. I think probably around 42 optimization. But more seriously, Redux has already improved performance significantly in many situations, especially for lower end systems. We don't currently have full-on benchmarks with like hard numbers on how much our changes have improved performance. That's something that we are working on. And in the future, the migration to the ECS system for background simulation, as well as other ongoing optimization, will help more and more optimize the game more and more to improve the performance and hopefully enable as many people as possible to play this game. Are you sure that a team of volunteers could be able to complete something like colonies at interstellar or interstellar on a buggy broken code base that could not support colonies at interstellar based off of Kerbal Space Program 1 by I don't know what to say. Phoenix is available here to answer this question because he's done a lot of analysis of both codes.
Okay, yeah. As far as the code base being buggy and broken, yeah, we've been in a continual process since the beginning of development to try to smooth things out wherever possible. During a lot of the optimization work, a lot of the work has gone into just trying to remove steps, trying to simplify stuff, trying to get rid of things that don't make sense, and dealing with stuff like really weird initialization orders and trying to smooth things over. And that actually is where some of the performance comes from. And it solves the problem of the buggy broken code base at the same time. So I've been trying to push everything toward being able to run an ECS and push everything toward being as simple as possible so that I can use tools like Burst and whatnot. So yeah, like there's no barrier to changing the code here. It's pretty straightforward to make arbitrary changes to the code, and we've been combing them out the whole time. So I think we're going to be better and better set up going forward.
I would just like to comment on this as well. That there is for some reason, common misconception that KSP2 code is basically just copy of KSP1, and that really couldn't be further from the truth. There are like some little remnants, some little files copied here and there, like Vessel SAS, for example. But overall, the architecture is very different and much more mature in KSP2, which makes it a much better base overall for this sort of large development than KSP1 could be.
How big will the final file size be? Infinity, do you want to answer this one?
So we honestly have no way of knowing, but given the relative size of parts and the planets that we're adding, and the fact that we're going to be adding a whole lot more of them, probably in the tens of gigabytes, maybe upwards of 100 gigabytes if there's that much content to be added. I'll, of course, be looking at ways to lower this, but it is just in sheer content.
Yeah, textures take a lot of space, and there will be a lot of them because we plan on adding a lot of parts. This question was asked by JAC, by Jebediah Kerman, the famous one. For the basic ISRU, based on the teaser video of resource scanning, it seems like there will be a lot of metals like iron and nickel. However, I don't see how that could be refined into fuel, with the refinery only taking, for example, water and turn that, will the refinery only taking water and turn that into fuel, and then the other materials will be completely useless until colonies, or will the refinery just make fuel from literally anything you mine? So the teaser was showcasing only the system, not the final resources. We put just some placeholder resources to fill in the UI mostly. And while there will definitely be some metals that you have to mine with the colonies updates, at first, the foundation version of ISRU only includes carbon regolith, ammonia, and water, which will be used to make methalox, monopropellants, and hydrogen, respectively. If a colony doesn't have a way to refine a resource into methalox, but is in a place where that resource is available, Will we be able to dock to that colony a ship that has an ISRU part that can produce methalox and use that ship to produce methalox for the colony? Yes, that's the plan. Any vessel within a certain range of a colony will be able to transfer resources to and from the colony containers, and thus enabling this kind of colony refining, so refining on the vessel and putting stuff back into the colony, for example, or just mining the raw resources at the colony, sending them to the vessel to be refined and used as fuel. That's the plan. Will the auto ships, so as in the ships that auto-refuel once you do it one time from a planet to a colony, release with ISRU or orbital colony? I think you're talking about like resupply routes with automated supply flights. The question by I am on the watch list. Munich's.
The supply routes functionality will not be added with ISRU because there would be very little use for it. It will come with colonies, and we are not yet sure exactly at which stage, because we are still discussing how exactly the colonies updates will progress. But the basic answer is that yes, they will come with colonies. And for exploration mode, which will be the earlier release mostly, you probably will not use supply routes, at least not in the same way as in Frontier, because there will be no resource capacities, so a similar system will just be the resource network that we have discussed before, but not in the same complexity as in Frontier, which will come later.
Will we get more ISRU features and parts in the near future? If there are, what could we expect? Like the surface scanner from KSP1, which lets us know where the ore is. So regarding ISRU, so especially on vessel ISRU, so ISRU parts running on vessels, not on colonies, it will drop all at once, because it wouldn't really make sense to like only release the drills if you don't have a scanner to know where the ores are, or only release a scanner that tell you, oh, there is some regolith here you can mine, but you don't have the drill to mine it, so that's not really useful. So it will release all at once. I think, I'm not sure, it's not a promise. I think the plan is to include it in the next beta, but this is not a promise right now. That's just what we hope to do. On the vessel, you can see the newly done models and textures for the drills and the converters, using the system which was already showcased a long time ago. And you can use the converter to convert the mined resources into fuel. How buggy is ISRU right now? Can you give us an example of a bug which was encountered during development? Polo, I don't know if you're here and want to answer that.
One of the bugs that we fixed in the ISRU feature involves the resource overlay in map view. So what's the resource overlay? You see, when you can scan a celestial body with the resource scanner to look for resources, and after you've done that, you can enable the resource overlay. So that's a visual mode that replaces the planet normal texture with a color-coded map showing the distribution of resources across the surface. So technically, this is done by swapping out the planet shader with a custom one that renders the resource data. And so when you turn the overlay off, the game restores the original shader to make the planet look normal again. But to do that, the game have to save the reference to the original shader in memory. And the bug is when you initially enable the shader, enable the overlay on one planet and then change the SOI, you could accidentally restore the wrong shader to the current planet. And for example, you could put a Kerbin texture over the moon. And that's one of the most visual bugs that we have for this that we had for this feature.
Yeah, that's a good thing that we fixed that, because otherwise it would get very confusing if every CB turned into Kerbin. But it might make for a fun mod. Only Kerbin? I don't know. I'll leave that for the other modders. But thank you for the answer. What will be Redux ISRU or name, since most fuels from KSP1 are renamed in KSP2?
In KSP2, we will have no single ore resource. Instead, every resource will have its own name. As we said before, for example, for building colonies and rockets, you will probably need to mine and process some metals. So you could imagine that we might have like iron ore as a resource that you mine, and then steel as a material that you process out of it. And for the basic foundation ISRU that we have been showing off, we are working with carbon regolith, ammonia, and water ice.
By LTQ, will the volumetric clouds for KSP2 receive further developments? Will we eventually see volumetric clouds comparable to the excellent ones in KSP1? I think they mean the volumetric clouds mod. Also, will KSP2 Redux get updates to improve terrain details just like KSP1's mod? I imagine they're talking about the parallax mod for KSP1. Thank you. We have Dan here. Dan, do you want to answer that, as you're working on a lot of VFX stuff?
Gladly. So we haven't been focusing on graphic stuff primarily because we don't have access to the shader stuff. But we've made some progress on that front in beta 1 by improving cloud shapes, adding cloud layers, stuff like that, but there's still a long way to go. And also, since we don't really have anyone on our team with the same expertise as BlackRock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's something that I will reiterate later, but if anyone has a lot of experience with writing shaders for stuff like clouds, planet rendering, oceans, and stuff like that, that would be useful in KSP2, and has experience with Unity shaders, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We're always looking for more experienced volunteers. When will the special parts explosions be added? I think they mean explosions based on different part types. Dan, again, since it's your area, do you want to answer?
Yes. So, like you said in the last question, VFX isn't a high priority, but the system for the special part explosions is there. Like, it already checks for atmosphere temperature, atmosphere depth, gravity, Mach number, all of that stuff, and fuel type, of course. It's just a matter of implementing it.
I see, yeah. But it's great that the system is already in place. It will make the implementation much easier for us. Do you plan on expanding the feature of KSP1 mods being able to work in KSP2? By expanding, I mean making it work better, load faster, or maybe even port some popular mods by hand. Munich, this was your baby. It was your creations.
In the future, most of the work on these part conversions will be focused on the SDK side, which means on the actual editor tooling for KSP1 modders who want to convert their mods to KSP2, rather than on this just drop the files in and the game will do it for you side. This was mostly just a technical demo to give people a taste of what we can do. But I will say that the SDK side for converting KSP1 mods is now mostly finished, ready for beta 7 release. So if you have a KSP1 mod and you want to work on porting it to KSP2, the release of beta 7 will be the perfect time for that.
Will there be a Shakespeare Project for Kopernicus mods as well?
This is something that we would definitely like to look into. We have already discussed, but again, I think it would most likely be in the form of editor tools that would allow KSP1 modders to more easily convert their mods into KSP2 rather than a runtime player-facing feature.
Do you wear wigs? Have you worn wigs? Will you wear wigs by Nisteroth? Munich?
I don't think I have tried before, but I am not opposed to the idea.
Okay, great question, Nisteroth, I guess. When will Redux exit stage 0? After we beta test the restorates and ISRU, we will start working on colonies, though maybe more foundation updates will also come out during that time. How long does the development team think it will take for the ISRU system to be added by Karate Buster 2000? We can't give out estimate, but we hope it will be in beta 7. How far are we from the first stable release? How far is it from the stable release to the completion of foundation stage? And when do you roughly expect each stage to be done? Also, what version number will each stage be?
I would say that we would consider the foundation stage done on the day that we release the first stable colonies update. So, you know, it will not be just a this is the foundation release and that's done. It will be more of a process similar to how we were in the for science stage of official KSP2 updates for the whole duration from 0.2.0 to 0.2.2. So that will be for the foundation duration. And when it comes to finishing the main roadmap features of Foundation, we do intend to have those all in the first stable release though, which, as I said, is hopefully coming somewhat soon.
How long do you expect it to take realistically to finish what the devs originally promised?
Definitely give us at least a few years, because realistically you kind of have to expect us as a small team of volunteers working on this in our free time, that it will take longer than the professional game studio would.
When will the dating sim be released by Purple Boy? I can answer this one just to be short. It will be released on March 19th. How hard has it been to work on this project? Oh, that's a difficult question. Munix, do you want to start?
For myself, I would say it ranges somewhere between this is a very fun side project that feels really rewarding to work on, to I hate every waking moment of my life while trying to fix some specific issue. That's my honest answer.
Yeah, do any other members of the team want to answer this one as well?
Oh yeah, absolutely that. You know, sometimes it's like I get to play around and try all my fun ideas, and then some days it's like, oh, the freaking launch clamps are broken, and I spend 2 days just trying to realize what exactly I broke, and and then I find out it's just something stupid, and it's like it goes back and forth between, hey, I did a cool thing, pat myself on the back, and then like there's some issue and it becomes a Sisyphusian, you know, task to try to fix it.
And it always ends up being something stupid, invariably.
Yeah.
Ideally, a one-line fix for like a week of issues.
I just want to say I hate the maneuver note system because I'm too dumb to understand it.
There are lots of complex parts in the code. If I want to avoid saying very weird, Unix, I think we both have PTSD from the fairing code.
Yeah, that's that's definitely one of the more interesting parts of the code base, which definitely goes to show that like some parts of the game were definitely rushed. That's something we can't deny.
Yeah, for sure. And personally, the project is most often fun. Sometimes, especially since I do a lot of management adjacent stuff in the project, it feels a bit like a second job, but it's fine. I like doing Excel spreadsheets, so that's fine.
Can definitely relate to the second job comment.
How does the KSP2 hate and Redux skepticism affect your motivation to work on this mod? Again, a bit of a difficult question.
I mean, honestly, it kind of just makes me want to do a better job at refuting the crazy amount of misinformation that we see surrounding KSP2, because trust me, there is so much of it. Just go on any KSP-related subreddit and you will see for yourself. But I will say that recently, especially after the releases of Beta 5 and Beta 6, we have been seeing so much more positivity than ever before. And so that's actually really heartwarming and kind of motivating.
Yeah, for sure. There has been a real turnaround of the public sentiment around the project recently, and that's been very heartwarming to see. Have you considered giving the updates fun names like the official ones had? Like maybe for update 7, something like Digging It by Rocket Girl? Yeah, we will probably start doing some fun naming for more significant updates, probably starting with the first stable release, but Yeah, that's definitely something fun that we want to do. What is the chance this project gets abandoned, like the original game, by paranoid FBI? That's very hard to quantify. Hopefully low. Right now, there is a lot of motivation in the team for working on the project, so that's not something that is on the horizon at all. But yeah, you never know what happens. But hopefully, as low as possible.
And we also don't have a massive publisher behind us who can fire us at any moment, so, that's a plus.
Yeah, we are our own bosses, which gracefully gives us our salary of $0. So we can't fire ourselves. Will you be working with teams of other projects, such as Promised Worlds, so the KSP1 mods, which adds the KSP2 Promised Planets? Infinity, do you want to answer this one?
Well, yes, we already do. If you look in the chat on Discord from here, you see that we have Emu, who is the lead dev of Promised Worlds on our team, actually. She has been working a lot on the dress toys coming in the next update.
Yeah,
as well as Marcus here in the chat as well.
We might have poached a few people from Promised World. Well, no, not really poached. They voluntarily came to help us very gracefully. I have been holding off on KSP simply because I have been waiting on the KSP2 Redux mod. Would you say that the mod is currently in a state where it would serve as a good starting point? If not, then where in the roadmap will that be the case?
Honestly, since the first release, I think that it already served as a really good starting point and improvement over KSP2 itself. But otherwise, where that certainly became the case, even outside of the first release, I would have said Beta 5, when we made the install flow a lot easier.
Yeah. And yeah, personally, I think if you want to play KSP2, if you own KSP2 and want to jump back into the game, you should try out Redux. It improves the game a lot already, and it makes the experience much more enjoyable. By that lag guy, I've been seeing people on Reddit calling your project a waste of time and a lost cause. It is driving me crazy because I love the work y'all have put in for Redux. It is inspirational. I am a modder for KSP1 and I do coding at work. Are you guys looking for additional help, or are there other ways I could contribute? First of all, thank you for the very nice message. And as I've said earlier during the stream, we are always looking for more volunteers. Please check out the websites linked here, or scan the QR code on your screen if you'd like to volunteer and to see the types of people we are looking for to help us bring KSP2 to what it was, to the state it was promised. Please don't hesitate to volunteer if you have experience with Unity, with computer graphics, with shader development, with asset development, and anything else that is listed on the website. With the more people that we have helping us, the faster the project will progress and the faster we will bring all the promised features on the roadmap. Will there ever be any way to donate using cash to help the projects? Currently, we are avoiding receiving donations in order to not get into any kind of trouble with the IP holders, since it's a project based on an existing IP. And I can't say anything for the future. It will depend on what kind of interactions we can have with the new owners and how the project will develop. So currently, no, sorry. I know a few people have asked, but not currently. Are we getting the FTL or near future engines like fusion or metallic hydrogen before the actual interstellar updates? Would be a good way to get more people interested in Redux if these engines were implemented one form or another before the actual interstellar updates.
That is not something that we are planning for now, because the resources that you will need to build those parts will only be available in other star systems. Well, apart from the first initial, most low-tech interstellar engines, which you will be obviously able to build using materials from Kerbal. And another big reason is that it would just take away our precious time from working on the hundreds of colony parts that we will need to eventually make. So that will be the focus first before we start working on interstellar parts.
Once it eventually gets to that point, will the Orion Drive, the put engine, be balanced for interplanetary or for interstellar?
The Orion Drive engines or the nuclear pulse propulsion engines will come with the colonies updates, which means it will be tuned for interplanetary travel. It will act as basically a tug for heavy cargo between the Kerbal planets.
I wonder if you plan on adding new parts at a higher level in the future, maybe new capsules or copies of capsules from the real world, maybe for example create a whole separate mechanic for space centrifuges, or a more extensive VAB for building interstellar ships.
There will be multiple new tiers of parts over time, including both colony and interstellar or other advanced vessel parts, such as the nuclear pulse propulsion that we have mentioned, or metallic hydrogen, which won't be interstellar fuel, but it will be an advanced form of interplanetary propulsion. And as for the copies of capsules from the real world, we don't expect to add any faithful recreations of real world rocket or spacecraft parts. At most, we might use them as inspiration, but the designs will generally be original.
Will the game in the future include first-person view inside the cabin and the ability to move inside the cabin?
So that is eventually the plan. IVA, especially with free movement, will be a lot of work though, because it requires remodeling almost all of the existing crew cabins and all other crewed parts. So it is not something that we are focusing on right now.
Will we see alien life forms on another planets like amoebas by Karate Buster 2000?
So for those who haven't visited Lathe, spoiler alert, but the Heart Lake discoverable already does, according to the science experiments, have fish in it, which little hopefully maybe someday I do want to make those fish actually visible using particles, so that could be cool. And we also have some other plans to eventually introduce more alien life in other star systems, so that's a little teaser for the future.
Will you expand upon the story, which is the best part of KSP2 according to Magnetisil?
I would say I'm working hard, but not currently, but I do have some pretty extensive plans for the story campaign, for the expansion of it all the way to the end game in the KEX system.
Is there going to be a campaign mod like in KSP1, and are you all going to make your own mods or adjust all the mods to work with Redux? If you mean something like the career mod in KSP1, the closest thing is our planned frontier mod, as I've explained in the very start of the stream. And regarding the mods, several Redux developers have their own mods, which they will probably or definitely update for when Redux gets a bit more stable. And we will like to help port the majority of old popular KSP2 mods to Redux when everything gets more stable. For example, I am the author of the Kerbal Life Support System mod for KSP2, and I've started working on porting it to Redux. I just haven't had the time right now to port it, but it will come to Redux for sure. Will this game introduce an economic system like KSP1 in the future? I don't plan on introducing like a funds or money system into KSP2. The limiting resources in Frontier mode will be like the raw resources and the extraction rates, and it will kind of replace the funds and the money that you had in KSP1 career mode. Will you add specific roles for Kerbal like in KSP1, and maybe develop it further to add more stuff related to the roles by Pingu Peng 2010? It is not really currently planned, but we might revisit it in the future if a gameplay need for this type of thing emerges from our design and from how stuff develops. Will the KSP1 DLC parts eventually be added to KSP2 Redux by Rocket Girl?
It won't be the same exact parts, and it won't be all of them, but It's something that we are already partially working on with the addition of the SM Plus parts category. A lot of those parts are inspired by the Making History DLC. And as for the other DLC, Breaking Ground, which mainly includes the robotic parts, those are on our radar, but they have a lower priority than the current roadmap features. It's something that we are thinking about, though.
I was wondering if you will ever add the KAL controller.
The KL controller is not in our short-term plans, but as part of the potential future addition of robotic parts, then the KL controller would definitely come with them as well. In the meantime, maybe somebody wants to learn KSP2 modding and make a mod for it.
How many parts from KSP1 will be in the first stable release of 0.2.3 name pending?
My thing is that this is a really hard question to answer depending on how you look at it. If you mean whether all of the KSP1 parts will be directly copied or recreated in the game, then no, that's definitely not the case. But if you are talking about parts that are vaguely inspired by KSP1 or KSP1 mods, then the answer would be all of the 400 plus KSP2 parts are based on KSP1 parts. So, hard to answer where you draw the line. But I want to clarify that neither our nor the original dev's intention is to just copy-paste KSP1 and expand on it. KSP2 is its own game with its own game design, visual language, engine archetypes, and so on. And while we definitely do reference KSP1 and its popular mods when making new parts, it has to be in service of specific KSP2 gameplay and user stories, not just KSP1 had this part, so KSP2 will have it too. That's the best I can say regarding this topic.
Are you planning on adding motors, propellers, etc. like KSP1, as I would really like to build the things I would have built in KSP1 in KSP2? Furthermore, will there be electric engines for planets with atmospheres and mining parts for refueling, so we could have more fun and longer range missions?
I can speak specifically to the electric engines. That's definitely something that we are looking into potentially. And for the robotic parts, I can just expand on it, saying that it basically hinges on first making our new analytical joint system stable first. That is a thing that I'm working on. Basically completely replacing the stock Unity physics engine joints with our own system that should be much more stable, have basically zero wobble, and also hopefully have better performance. So once that is tested and stable enough, we might want to look into robotic parts after that. And we have already been teasing ISRU for a long while, so yeah, parts for refueling are coming hopefully in the next update.
Is there anything planned to make it easier to do Falcon 9 style reuse, i.e. land the first stage and then get the second stage to orbit? Currently, you have to sacrifice one stage or fly a very inefficient gravity turn.
I already kind of planned to make this mod before KSP2 was abandoned and Redux was formed. And now it's something I would definitely like to bring into Redux. Ideally, it would be sort of similar to KSP1's FMRS mod, but hopefully with better integration into the core gameplay loop.
Yeah, no, that's reusability is like the way to do rockets in the real world. It would make sense to add stuff related to that into KSP2, since we want to inspire people to get into the aerospace and into rocketry, because yeah, that's fun, and it's a very, very interesting domain, and everyone is doing reusable rockets, so people should be able to do them in KSP2 as well.
Yeah, and I will just add that this is not the only feature that we are adding or plan on adding, which helps with reusability. There's a little thing that we are working on right now, which we may be able to tease soon. Not here today, but expect a little teaser in the next few days.
How about creating a built-in autopilot inside the game with all the functions like MechJeb2, for example? That's not something we are currently planning on adding into the game, at least not in the full capacity. We might add some tools to help out with, like, for example, planning interplanetary trajectories and other similar planning tools, though. But for a full-on autopilot, that's something that we will leave up to the modders, because the core experience of KSP is flying your own rockets, and for the stock game, we want to keep it that way. But we will add a lot of planning tools for sure, because you won't like plan interstellar transfers using like this basic maneuver planning tool, like the basic maneuver planner. It would be much too complicated and kind of impossible to do. So new planning tools for sure, but not a full-on autopilot. Do you plan on adding more star systems? That's what was already planned by the original KSP2 developers by Bow. We don't currently have any specific plans for more, but you know, there is always room for it after the full-on 1.0 release. Will there be any organic spacecraft parts?
I'm not really sure how this question was meant, because immediately the first thing I'm thinking of is like the Yuuzhan Vong ships from old Star Wars Expanded Universe, which were like living organisms. And if that's the case, then no, definitely don't expect those in KSP2. If you mean some things like greenhouses and like growing organic food for Kerbals and whatnot, then those are things that we will probably be adding for colonies.
Will there be astrophage engines in the game, like from Project Hail Mary? No, that's not planned right now. The final question by Anonymous is, when will the Q&A take place? It's happening right now. With that, we have gone through all of the prepared questions that were sent to our Google Forms in advance.